It seems so logical. It seems so evident that user groups have a say how schools arrange teaching about them. It seems so evident that our students learn about, from, and with people who are experts about their own lives. And so they can learn how to approach interactions as partnerships. It seems so evident that educators act as their role models in collaborating with user groups. The EU for All project about employment for disadvantaged groups is an example where nothing about us, without us, was a leading principle for all 4 European occupational therapy institutes involved. Client groups, employers and other stakeholders from the United Kingdom, Sweden, Germany and the Netherlands were partners from the beginning in designing and delivering this education. For instance, in Sheffield, older people were regarded as experts in aging and employment. They had a big say in deciding on the most important things, like tuning competencies for the students. Another example is Barbara. Barbara is a mother of a child with a cerebral palsy. We know each other since our daughters became friends 5 years ago in the kindergarten. Since then, Barbara was involved in several projects, like the design and delivery of a postgraduate course using the Canadian Process Practice Framework. Barbara co-created the content and acted as a client for the occupational therapist, who discussed the whole occupational therapy process with her. This educational experience was very valuable for occupational therapists, but most of all for Barbara herself. She became aware of her strengths and how she could better advocate for her daughter. She decided to join a client board in the rehabilitation center.
Ja, ons contact heeft natuurlijk daar...
Our cooperation talks made me think at one point. It made me think about my situation and what happens in the rehabilitation center where I go with my daughter. I realized I did not know a lot of things and was not getting the right information. You know, things are not always well organized in rehab. I also realized that I can only change things by becoming active myself. And maybe, in this way, I could also help other parents. I decided to become a member of a client board in a rehabilitation center. And in this way, I hope to influence decisions, as well as help more people.
Of in te zetten voor een heel klein beetje hulp ook voor andere mensen.
Research will face changes too. The following aspects will become very important. Impact on the research methodology and the user involvement. Self-management and community-based approaches require new type of research methodology. Traditional research methodology might not be appropriate to evaluate effectiveness of community-based approaches. It is the community who decides what the problem is, what the outcome measure should be, and the ways to solve the problem. There is no magic bullet, one size fits all, or best standard. Communities make it impossible to randomly assign individuals or groups to a particular community. And it's sometimes difficult to identify appropriate comparison or control communities. There is yet no consensus about the most appropriate method for evaluating community-based approaches or programs. Work is still to be done. The nothing about us, without us motto will have impact also on research. Cooperation with service users in designing and conducting research might soon become a criterion for the quality of research. In some countries, user involvement in research is obligatory. On European level are several initiatives to improve user involvement. For example, the Future Future Age project, aiming for a roadmap for aging research, the involvement of elderly was a core element. Barbara became a research partner in my PhD project about the needs of parents of children with a physical disability. She is part of the research team and involved in design of the studies and has many valuable contributions in several phases of this project. In the Netherlands, to be a research partner, one has to follow education, and that's what Barbara did. She is the one that makes the research team aware of what matters for parents. Barbara still remembers very well when I was preparing for one study, my quantitative study.
Ja, ik weet inderdaad dat er een deel van een vragenlijst, en die vond ik heel...
I remember when we were working on the parent questionnaire, I found some questions not so well formulated. I would say rather negative, even scary sometimes. I thought, how will parents react to this? What will be the impact on them? I knew it was a part of a valid instrument that you wanted to use, but I found it so important to confront the research team with it and to express how it feels for a parent, because I didn't have a good feeling about
Heel
it.
goed om voor jullie om mee te nemen van ja, zo komt dat op een ouder bijvoorbeeld over.
Also, practice needs a redesign. The focus will be on self-management support, community approaches as a regular intervention, and interventions will be designed with a motto, nothing about us without us. Following developments, occupational therapists would have to make information and decision aids available to enable clients to manage their own situation. Zuid University, for instance, is now developing an online decision aid for elderly and carers to be used for making choices for simple solutions and accessible devices for being independent. I would say that this is just a starting point. What about a website tool developed by occupational therapists to explore meaningful activities, followed by identification of problems and wishes? A kind of COPM, but then online. In case questions arise, users can contact occupational therapists online. The community approach will become a regular intervention in occupational therapy. The first steps are already made. With a permission with the authors, I will use the Canadian example developed in Canchild, a Canadian research institute. They developed a new intervention for school participation called Partnering for Change. Partnering for Change focuses on collaboration of teachers, parents and therapists. The aim is to create a more supportive learning environment for children without disability and for children with a developmental coordination disorder. It's all about targeting the whole community. The intervention considers the community, the school as agent, looking at what can be done for successful participation of all the children. The occupational therapist is a facilitator. In case problems remain, the next step is to focus on the level of the individual classroom. The one-to-one approach with a child with ECD is only used if the measures in earlier phases did not turn out to be successful. I will be short about this one, and you probably cannot read. But after I have been talking for about 40 minutes, it goes without saying that there should be no intervention developed without partnership with the user groups. There are several models for designing interventions that can help you out there. For instance, the one on the slide, Intervention Mapping Protocol. In Zuid University, all occupational therapy teachers are part of communities of practice, where development and evaluation of interventions is central. Myself, I'm part of a community of practice that aims to develop new to support the social participation of children with and without disability in mainstream education. Besides my colleagues, this community of practice involves parents, directors, teachers of primary schools, and occupational therapists. Do you still remember my example from Slovenia? The boy and the wheelchair? How differently I would act today. Nowadays, I would include diversity of strategies, like providing parents with information, maybe even directing them to social networks for parents facing similar issues. I will also support them to find out what is important for their child to participate in education. Further, I would encourage them to tell me how they think they could arrange this themselves with other parents, teachers, or managers from the schools, and how they see my role therein. The partnering for change could be just the right choice. To conclude, societal changes will have an impact on the social participation of clients in terms of supporting each other and contributing to solutions in the community. I am aware that this does not apply to all persons with chronic diseases and disabilities, especially for very vulnerable groups. Nevertheless, the times are changing, and occupational therapy will have to consider that social participation is fundamental, and nothing about us without us is a must for meeting the needs of the clients. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very interesting stuff. Thank you very much. And we also have a small present for you. I think the last speakers can learn